did an event this morning at the JCC in Denver, in central Denver, and John Elway was the guest. It was a breakfast. We inducted Irv Brown into the Hall of Fame, and then John Elway and I sat down for a conversation on stage at the Wolf Theater.
The first
very first.
inductee.
This was the inaugural event. So John and I sat on the stage, kind of like James Lipton in the Actors Studio. 2 nice chairs, table in between us, a couple of waters, and we just talked for a half hour. A conversation, and John was unbelievable. Very open, very comfortable, answered every question with insightfulness, with humor. Talked to him about Manning, talked to him about Tebow, but one of the things he said that was really interesting, and you can probably find this on denverpost.com. I think Troy Rank wrote about it because he was there. John believes that the defense he's put together not only is underestimated, it might be the best defense on paper he has seen. Now, I wasn't sure if he meant he has seen with the Denver Broncos, or he has seen in the 4 years he's been here, or he has seen in the history of the NFL, but he really likes his defense. And you know, I've been talking about this defense for a while. I think it's being underestimated all across the nation.
Sure. You made the same mistake I did last year, though. I went up to him and I said, "Is this the best wide receiving core that you've ever seen?" And he went, "Oh yeah, by far." And I can't even get my, he was talking about Cody Latimer, can't even get my guy on the field. And I walked away and I went, did he mean like ever in the league or with the Broncos? And I forgot to ask the follow-up question, and you did the same thing.
Well, the bottom line is he really likes his defense, and I think he should, Woody. I really do. I like this defense.
I heard a show yesterday. Dan Patrick was talking about, the question was on that show was, which division has the best defenses? And they determined that the division with Miami, Buffalo, New England,
AFC East,
and the Jets.
Yeah.
That the Patriots would probably be the 4th best defense in that division.
I was just thinking that
and
as you
they put
said
that
that
up against the division that includes the team that's in town, San Francisco, the NFC West, with Arizona, St. Louis, Seattle, and San Francisco.
Right.
Well, I think San Francisco's moved out of the conversation,
right.
But Arizona, with Bruce Arians, good defensive team. St. Louis and Jeff Fisher, that's always been a good defensive team. Seattle, we know. And I thought what's interesting when I was listening to it coming downtown, that the Broncos aren't mentioned by anybody in the top 10 defenses.
Do you think, I was thinking about that. Do you think it's possibly because Peyton Manning so overshadows everything else that goes on with whatever football team he's on, that people don't even think about the defensive side of the ball on a Peyton Manning team?
How many players are on the defense that are Pro Bowlers? I forget. We just talked about.
I believe the number is 5.
5. Okay, well, there's the Talib, there's Chris Harris, who made it last year and is considered by some, quote, Pro Football Focus, calls him the best, he had the best cornerback season in the league last year. You've got in T.J. Clark a Pro Bowler. Darian Stewart does not really fit into Pro Bowl status. Let's be truthful. He's a starter, a solid starter in the league. Then you got Von Miller, DeMarcus Ware. So there's 2 more guys that are Pro Bowlers, and there's not anybody on the defensive line. But we think Malik Jackson will jump into being a Pro Bowl contender. There was a guy who used to be here who told me.
Well, I think Brandon Marshall played Pro Bowl caliber linebacker last year.
You're absolutely right.
And if he stays healthy, I think you'll see him in Hawaii next year.
I interviewed him on a day where he was doing a charity event with his mother, was flying into town, and I had limited time with him. We sat outside at Dove Valley, late in the season, and I was talking to him about the Pro Bowl, and he said that would really be a great honor for him, and I think he would have been a guy in great consideration for it. And he got hurt like the 2 days after I interviewed him, and that kind of took him out of the running for even being selected as an alternative player or something like that, an alternate. And so you're right. There's 7 quality guys. There was a guy.
A lot of pass rushers there now.
There was an executive going back years and years ago with the Broncos who told me that he felt like, and I'm spacing on his name, went from here to Arizona.
Bob Ferguson.
Bob Ferguson told me, you want to have at your 22 positions a guy who would be in the conversation for Pro Bowl at all 22 positions. Well, the Broncos.
Of course you do. I mean, you'd have a pretty good roster.
He didn't say 22 Pro Bowlers, but guys that would be in the conversation, that would get some votes. Sure, I mean, maybe that's over, but I've always thought that. I always look around and go, who is a Pro Bowl possibility? Well, Malik Jackson is. You got 3 linebackers that will be in the conversation. You brought up Brandon Marshall.
Yes.
3 players in the defensive backfield, so that's 3, 6, 7.
I'm going to throw one more at you. I'm going to be getting way ahead of myself here. If Sylvester Williams, who was a first-round draft pick 2 years ago, if he continues to play in the regular season the way he's playing in the preseason, he might get a look. He might get a look. He might get some votes.
Les,
I know.
You're right. You're getting
ahead
of
myself.
You may be right about him, but you are really right about you. I don't know that you judge on 2 games and some practices when they're not really playing.
It's a huge if. All right.
I mean, we have to you have to state that he was an underachiever his first 2 years here. And he's a guy who came to the game late. He worked in a factory. He's still learning the game of football.
Right. But it seems like he's had an epiphany of sorts.
I would say he's a mass. So that's a starting point. He's a mass there.
A mass. Like a weight mass?
Well, that's better than Jag. He's a mass.
Okay.
He is a massive person. He is a mass in the middle. He should be able to take up 2 guys' attention on the offensive line.
And so far this year, so good.
And if somebody comes up the middle, he should be a guy that participates.
So why is the Broncos defense underestimated right now?
Because last year they have been a great run stopper.
Mm-hmm.
In Jack Del Rio's,
and lost Terrence Knighton, who was very important to that run stopping.
I don't think that's why they're underestimated. I don't know that people, because of the way Terrence Knighton has turned out in his career before last year, Jack Del Rio didn't play an aggressive defense. He played a softer defense and put man-on-man, didn't attack a lot, didn't blitz a lot. They were good against the run, not good against the pass. They were like 28th or 29th because the other team's offenses with Peyton Manning here have gotten a lot of opportunities, and they're usually behind. They're throwing a lot. So the Broncos are playing not prevent, but they're playing soft defense. Let you catch the ball in front of them. I think that I would wonder why people wouldn't pay more attention to Wade Phillips being here. That he's always gone in and turned the defense into a better one. Did it at Houston, did it at Dallas, you go through Denver when he was here before. So I would say if they can be in the top 8, I'm pulling a number out of the air, if they can be in the top 8, that would be good enough here, given what we believe in Denver the offense is going to accomplish.
Harmony Foundation, you want to tell people about that?
I spent a lot of time with the executives and the people, not the patients, to be truthful, but I played the golf tournament. I have met with them several times. I really trust the Harmony Foundation. I have a very good friend whose son went to the Harmony Foundation, had some drug and alcohol problems, and has been clean for over a year and a half. And when I asked the folks up at Harmony Foundation what their success rate is, and I bring this up because I think it's so important, that if you go there, 85%, you could be among the 85% that a year and a half later are no longer dealing with addiction, have stayed clean, to be straight about it, for a year and a half. And it's supposedly, you fight addictions your entire life, but if indeed you can stay clean for a year and a half, you're well on your way to having turned your life around. And so they don't care whether you go there, and this is a terrible commercial. They don't care whether you go to the Harmony Foundation if you have a problem or know somebody has a problem. They just want you to get help, and they are an alternative. They are a choice that you can make because they do have a great campus up there. And I talked to my friend about it. He was up there with his son and said that it is a serene kind of place, and they do a lot of education. They're growing. They're building a new gym up there. I help with the fundraising effort on that. Harmony Foundation, keep that in mind. If there's someone in your family that you want to help, or if it's you, harmonyfoundationinc.com.
Defensive conversation a little bit further. And you and I don't know the full 22 starters on every team. but we have a pretty good feel for the better teams in this league. I'm going to go so far as to say that I believe offense, defense, special teams, depth in all three categories, depth. I think the Broncos have the deepest team in the league. They're, especially with the loss of Jordy Nelson in Green Bay. That's a big, big loss for them. The loss of Pouncey in Pittsburgh. Now, you could look at the Broncos and say the loss of Clady is big as well, but
that's what people are looking at.
Yeah, but I think the Broncos are still so deep at every position that they're going to easily overcome the loss of Ryan Clady. I think the Broncos and Seattle, with the addition of Jimmy Graham, probably have the deepest rosters in either league.
Green Bay.
Even without Jordy Nelson?
Jordy Nelson, they still got Cobb. They got a couple of good young wide receivers. I think the way they draft, you and I have talked about it, the way they draft, they have loyal players that stay with them. They lose very few players.
What if Cam Chancellor doesn't end his holdout? What if Cam Chancellor doesn't end up playing for Seattle this year?
You know that's going to get
probably
settled. Yeah. It always gets settled before the season starts. They do a lot of staring, and then they get it settled. That's what we saw with Demaryius Thomas and Des Bryant, right the hour before it happened, as the bell was ringing, the toll bell was ringing. For whom the bells toll, Des Bryant and Demaryius Thomas. That happens over and over again. The Broncos have always been good about signing their people.
Very few holdouts through the years.
So that is, I would say, the depth that I'm not real wild about the depth that in the secondary. You got to depend on. I looked again this morning at the depth chart because I thought you were going to maybe bring up a question like this in the next few days. Tony Carter is dependable. He's not very good. Kayvon Webster hasn't really spit a drop.
It's kind of hit or miss
in the last year or so.
And, he either blows you up or he gets burned.
So you got the four
right?
guys, and then you got David Bruden, who's serviceable.
Are you thinking about Roby?
Yeah, you got the four guys and Roby. They got five guys. So you got to keep 8 or 9. I'm not real wild about the depth there. I'm fine with the depth at linebacker. I'm not real wild about the defensive line. We think that's the.
It'll help when Derek Wolfe gets back from the suspension.
The questions are going to be offensive line and who they keep there, how much depth there is. They have, because of signing Mathis, they got more depth suddenly. Running back, I'm fine with the running back. I'm fine with the wide receivers. I'm fine. I'm not real fine with the tight ends. Owen Daniels, you think? And I've heard other people echo what you said when he came here and we had him on the show and I talked to him the other night, that he's a Pro Bowl caliber tight end. It's just hard for me to put him in that category.
No, but you also have to remember who's been throwing to him his whole career.
Seattle,
in Houston, not great quarterbacks throwing.
Seattle, Green Bay. Yeah, this is going to surprise you. Arizona. I think there's a lot of depth in Arizona. I think that team they're not sneaky good anymore. I think they're good. They got Carson Palmer back.
Yeah.
Carson Palmer's still a quality quarterback that kind of fell off the map after what happened in Cincinnati and goes to Oakland. Carson Palmer, I think, is a solid
if he
quarterback.
stays healthy, I think they're a major threat. And they've got really good coaching. Bruce Arians is
good
a really
coaching,
good coach.
And look at the depth on that team. I think you'd be surprised that that's a veteran. Who else? How do you leave? I think Baltimore has depth. I haven't looked enough at Pittsburgh. I think they're thin defensively.
They are, as is Indianapolis.
Yeah.